and this is board number 6. Which is true about this scatter plot? Check all that apply. Okay, so let's see if I can get all of the choices in. There we go. Okay. All right. So it says the values of x and y in this plot have a positive association, which means as the values of x increase, so as we move from left to right on the x-axis, the values of y increase. Okay, so as I move from left to right, so we've got these y values, and then I move here, and oh, these y values are bigger. And I move here, and these y values are bigger. This is, in general, what is happening to the pattern. As I moved here, these get bigger. Okay, so yes, they do have a positive association. This scatter plot suggests a linear association between the x and the y. So in other words, if we took the average of the data, which is what the computer did, or the calculator rather, when we did linear regression, if it looks like the pattern is kind of making a straight line, now obviously we're not talking about the individual points. Okay, we're talking about the overall data, what the pattern of the data is doing. If the pattern of the data looks like the group is kind of hanging together, the data points, that's what I mean by the group of points, if they're kind of hanging close together, then it is going to be linear. So for example, if we had this, but then we had another one here and here and here and here, and if they're all over the place, then that would not be linear. But notice they're all grouped together right here. So that is yes. The slope of the best fit line through these points is negative. So the slope is negative, which means as you increase the x value, you decrease the y value. So no, this is not true. From looking at the graph, the y-intercept for the best fit line through the data points could be around -2. Well, we clearly see that the y-intercept would be positive. Like if we drew the line of best fit, which averages all the data, which is what we learned how to do on the calculator with the linear regression, is the y-intercept going to be a -2? Clearly it's not. Okay, so no. So this is false, right? And this is false. The rate of change, in other words, the slope, for the line of best fit is positive. So that means as the values of x increase, the values of y increase. Yes, they do. As the value of x increases, the value of y decreases. So as we move left to right, the values of y decrease. That's not true. So those 3 are true and those 3 are false. Place each of the following numbers in the correct category. A rational number. A rational number can be written in the form of a over b, in other words, as a fraction. Also, a rational number, if you look at the decimal form, either ends or what's called terminates, or it repeats. An irrational cannot be written as a over b, and the decimal form doesn't repeat and it doesn't terminate, so it never ends. Okay? An irrational number for sure is anything that includes pi, and it is also the square root of any prime number, or it's the square root of a composite A composite just means two, besides 1 times 2, for example, or 1 times 3, or 1 times 5. All of those would be 1, 2, 3, 5. Those are prime numbers. However, 4, and because 4 is either 2 times 2 or 1 times 4, and 6, which is 1 times 6 or 2 times 3, a composite is not just the 1 times itself. Okay, it's two other numbers that multiply to give you that number. So if the number underneath the radical sign includes is a composite where one of the factors is prime, then it is also going to be irrational. So it's a composite with a prime number as a factor. Okay, so let's look. Okay, so this is a fraction. Obviously, it's rational. This is 2 to the negative first, which now we know is 1 over 2. So that is a rational number. The square root of 3 is a square root of a prime number. So it's irrational. The square root of 49 equals 7. And 7 can be written as 7 over 1. Therefore, this is a rational number. 2/3 is a fraction. Rational. 5 can be written as 5 over 1. Rational. The square root of 7 is a prime number, so therefore it's irrational. The square root of 0.04. Okay, the square root of 0.04 is 0.2. 0.2 times 0.2 is 0.04. So that is also rational. And then anything with pi, although I know that there's no list here, but if we had pi or 2 pi, or if we had 2 pi over 3, or if we had 4/5 pi, if it's got pi in it, it's also irrational. Find the value of x if x squared equals 36. So in other words, we're asking what number times itself equals 36. So of course the really obvious one is 6 times 6. Okay, so x can equal 6. However, there is another one, and it is -6. If x is -6, then -6 times a -6, -6, the number times itself, is also a positive 36. So x can be positive or -6. If x cubed equals 27, what's the value of x? So here we're asking what number times itself again, right? Cubed, 1, 2, 3. What number times itself is equal to 27? So 1 times 1 times 1 would be 1. 2 times 2 times 2 would equal 8. 3 times 3 times 3, 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Therefore, x is equal to 3, because that is the number that if I cube it, right, x cubed, 3 cubed, that would be 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. The distance car A is traveling is given by the following table. Blah. There we go. The distance of car B is traveling is represented with the graph. Apply what is true about cars A and B. Select all that apply. Okay? The rate of change, the slope, and the distance of each car travels is its speed. Oh, the rate of change, it should say is the distance each car travels. Oh, hold on. The rate of change, distance each car travels, speed. Okay, so this is, well, speed equals, well, rather, distance equals rate times time. Okay, and here the rate is known as the speed. And the speed If I solved for r, the r would equal, I have to divide this by t and divide this by t, distance over time. So here the speed is distance over time. The rate of change, the slope, in the distance each car travels is its speed. I just don't think that makes a whole, I don't really like how that one's worded, but the answer is yes, because right here, if we substituted d for y, right, and we substituted x for time, right, so if I had y equals rt, right, because the y is the distance and the time is the x, okay, then I would be in the form y equals mx plus b, where m, the rate, is the speed, is the slope. So the answer is yes. The two cars are traveling at the same speed. So for us to answer this question, we either need to plot this line and make sure that the slopes are the same, or we need to figure out the slope of this and the slope of this. So I will do it this way. Okay, so we know that slope is the change in y over the change in x, which is the rise over the run. Okay, so here the rise is 110, right? 220 minus 110 would be 110. And here the run from 2 to 4 is 2. So the slope of this line is 110 over 2, which is 55. 55 miles per hour. Okay, now if I do the same thing right here and I subtract, now these are my x numbers, these are my y numbers. I think I'll come up here where I have a little more space. I would have 350 minus 210, so this minus this, over 5 minus 3. Notice I'm going in the same direction with my subtraction. So 350 minus 210 is going to be 140 over 2, and that's going to be 70 miles per hour. Okay, so it says the two cars are traveling at the same speed. No, they're not. Car A is traveling at a greater speed than B. Well, car A, which is from the table, is 70 versus 55, so yes. The line in the graph of car A should not go through the origin. Okay, the line in the graph of car A, so if we've gone 0 hours, we've gone 0 miles. The line in the graph of car A should not go through the origin. Yeah, it should. That's false. The relation between the distance and the time for both cars is proportional. Yes, it is. It means, so, oh yeah, check mark. It means that every time this driver goes 2 hours, they're going to do an additional 110 miles every single time. So right here, when they go these 2 hours, they win an additional 110 miles. So that is in proportion. Every time they increase by 2 hours, they go the same number of miles. To be able to confirm that, I mean, that's really easy to see on the graph. So on the table, what we would have to do is subtract. So 490 minus 350 would be 140 over 2. That's going to be the same. And then we would have to figure out this one. 700 minus 490, 700 minus 5 is 200. So that'd be 210 over 10 minus 7 is going to be 3. So this is also 70 miles per hour. So yes, they're both proportional.